Alrighty, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Made to Pray podcast. You're joining us on episode number 79, and I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Lisa Williamson. Absolutely brilliant episode. Great guest to have on the show. So we're going to have a conversation with Mo and Glenn from the Imperial Guards about the history of the band in terms of where they've come from in the last year or so, and to look at some of the significant events that have happened since they've formed. We're also going to be looking at some of the things around their repertoire and how they actually dealt with the whole idea of forming a brand new band. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation with Morris and Glenn. Folks, welcome along to episode number 79 of the Made to Pray podcast. Delighted to have two guests from the Imperial Guards. Guys, you just want to introduce yourselves for the guests watching?
Yeah, so I'm Glenn Baxter. I'm the drum major of the Imperial Guards Flute Band.
Right.
I'm Morris, as you well know, Glenn. I think I was originally episode 3 on series 1 of Made the Parade, and I'm currently doing social media, child protection, and playing piccolo in the band.
Dead on. So just in terms of maybe before we get into anything to do with the band, maybe just give a brief synopsis of how long you've been involved with bands and what those kind of roles have looked like initially before we talk about the Imperial Guards themselves.
Yeah, so involved in bands. I originally started in pipe band. Still a member with a pipe band. So I started as a drum major with pipe bands, and this is a new venture for me with the Imperial Guards Flute Band as a drum major with flute band. So it's a new beginning, and I'm enjoying it all so far.
All right, great. Mars, probably don't need to ask too much because obviously it's all on the episode we did with you, but just a brief overview would be great.
Yeah, no worries. I grew up in marching bands in East Belfast. Left home in 1996 to join the Irish Guards. 2011 transferred to the Scots Guards as a drum major there. Then done 4 tours in the army as a drum major of the Scots Guards, the Army School of Ceremonial, the Coldstream Guards, and finished up in the RLC. I was around about the last time I spoke to you, just as I was transitioning, moving home, said I was retired. And the guys here in the Imperial Guards have reeled me back in.
Right, so you've had an Al Pacino Godfather 3 moment, have you? Just when you thought you were out, they've pulled you back in?
More or less, more or less.
Brilliant. So in terms of where we want to start this out in terms of looking at where the guards have come from, I suppose for me, one of the questions that I would have around is motivation for starting another melody band in East Belfast whenever there's 5 reasonably decent melody bands there already. What's the story there?
Yeah, so it all fell into place really for the guys. It started last April, and the guys met together. I knew about it, but at that point they were trying to reel me in as a transition from pipe bands to flute bands, and I held off, so I didn't really come to the band till the end of last year. But with the guys, I'll say I asked the same question: how did this all begin, and what happened? So the guys just came together. It was all guys wanting to come together and enjoy music, and there was a want to do it. So I think when you have the guys to do that, it makes it a lot easier. So it does.
Okay, so the some behind some of that motivation is just what wanting to go out in your own direction and try something different or what, or what was?
Yeah, well, I think same with a lot of bands. There's a lot of guys out there, and I think they put it out there, and everybody just came together, and we're still recruiting, and it is out there, but the guys came together, and yeah, Mo would know a wee bit more than me. He came in just before me within the
Right.
band, so
No worries. Well,
I'll hand over.
talk us through those initial steps then, because obviously, whenever you maybe arrived in, the guys have maybe been what a few months down the line in terms of the
No, I
journey?
was actually there on the first night the guys had met formally. Obviously, all the
okay.
informal discussions had all taken place prior to that. The location of East Belfast is interesting, and for that we have to thank the Albert Bridge Accordion,
Right.
because it's actually their practice room that we're using
Uh-huh.
as a base and as a location. So we're spread very much a greater Belfast band. I mean, there's 2 carloads almost coming out of Rathcoole and Newton
Right.
Valley area as well. But yeah, no, East Belfast is as well catered for melody bands. Certainly, probably the most prominent part of the city.
Yeah.
You've mentioned 4. I'd say there's maybe
No, there's 5. I think there's 5. Is now you've got the Paul McCart, you've the Blues and Royals, you've the Regimental, you've Paradise Raven, and then there's obviously I don't know what you would call them, Miller, and East Belfast. band with them being at Shaw's Bridge, like, but I mean, they're kind of technically that Belfast area, though, in terms of that, so it gives you good five melody bands in terms of that there. And I suppose with you guys being based in East Belfast, that gives us six now.
Yeah, absolutely. The first night was very interesting actually because it was only last April,
Yeah.
and time has went really, really quickly. And we're all stood looking at each other and going, it was clearly achievable. But I think we were even caught off guard by the speed things escalated,
Yeah.
and getting out pretty much within 12 months, bang on the
Yeah.
button. It's some feat.
No, well, let's roll it back to the end of that those first couple of months. And what kind of were the challenges that you were facing, obviously, in terms of, because I think for me this is a really good insight for people to get an idea of how a brand new band like goes from idea to marching on the road and stuff. So talk to us if you can about those first few months. What were the challenges that you actually faced?
So I think initially the challenge was getting the right people in the right posts and roles within the band. It's okay getting a room full of experienced bandsmen,
Hmm.
but are they the right bandsmen to take on certain roles? And once they were all identified, we put a conductor in place, the chairman was in place, and the treasurer. That's the top table pretty much. And then obviously formed a committee afterwards. But very, very quickly, things like fundraising, what instruments we're going to use, and we have the whole band and Loyal Order fraternity to thank for, getting us going.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for them, obviously the fundraising within the band has been amazing.
Yeah.
But, and if you look in our social channels, we've got a 3.5 minute video thanking everybody who helped
Sure.
us. That without those guys, it wouldn't
Would
be
have been
possible.
possible, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk a wee bit more about your fundraising and stuff there, because I think it's also an element of of bond life that's an integral part of bond life is consistently having the fundraise. So, in terms of getting the right people into the right positions, you were talking about, Don, how did that process go for you in terms of how did you end up working through deciding who took those roles on, and how's that been working out for you?
Well, the top table, like I said, they were the founding fathers, as it were, so they were pretty much predetermined,
Right.
and they'd done such a good job. They were very quickly re-elected going into the start
Okay.
of year two. But it was pretty clear looking around the room who the lead tip was going to be, who the band captain was going to be. I wanted to very much take a backwards seat and come in and play second B flat flute.
Right.
But, I do have a lot of experience, not only in bands here, but
Yeah.
globally almost. So eventually they wrote me into taking piccolo. I enjoy my social media as well. So I said I would take that on as well. And having worked in a safeguarding company and being a father of young children, it made sense to take on the child protection role as
Right.
well. So that's my personal story. What I was very keen on doing as well, that making sure that there was young members or younger members certainly within the committee, and their opinion is very much very, very much thought of, because if it's not, they're the future.
Yeah.
And like any other band, as a challenge, I think every band now is struggling for flute players under the age of 40 to come in,
Mm.
particularly in melody bands where there's an awful lot more work is required to get up to the line.
Yeah. I think that's it's interesting that you mentioned that there, because I think one of the things that I think most melody bands kind of suffer from is this idea. They're great at sometimes getting young people through the door, but keeping them in the door is difficult because of the size of repertoire, sometimes the difficulty in regards to the tunes and so on, and then becomes a migration towards the Blood and Thunder aspect. Although saying that there are some Blood and Thunder bands repertoires these days is quite is ridiculous, but there is that kind of idea that, hey, it might not be sexy to be part of a melody band. Let's go somewhere else. Did you find you haven't fallen foul of that at all in any shape or form?
We have got quite a few younger members. There is, good few drummers there, and it's just trying to bring in the young flute players, and it's reaching out to the local community. I think with nowadays social media is a big aspect, and we thank Mo for that, for the work he does put into that, and hopefully it does reach out there to the local community and brings more younger players into the
Right.
band. I think seeing younger players within the core of the band will attract more younger players, and hopefully I say to their friends, and hopefully it reaches out to there. But
Yeah.
no, it is going really well so far.
Okay. How big of a band did you start off with that first night? What are we talking? What are we in terms of membership wise?
It was almost a 1-to-1 ratio with flute players to drummers.
Right. Okay.
Then a few more flute players did come in, you know, but like I said, Sammy, the lead tip, you know, well renowned in the local band scene, you know, so he attracts, he's got his wee nucleus of guys almost,
Right. Okay.
you know, so it was very, very easy for him to come in. I'm the lead tip. This is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to do. The flute players sort of looked at each other for a couple of weeks just to figure out who's going to be on first, who's going to be on seconds. We're aspiring to play Fs. Marcus, the conductor, he's currently on F, but with only one player
Yeah.
at the moment, you know, because yet again, you're taking a B flat player in
Mm.
and just, you go, there's an F. It's not as easy as that,
Yeah.
you know.
So, so in terms of them widening the recruitment, how did you go about doing that? How did you end up trying to reach out beyond that original nucleus and try and bring other people in?
Well, I spoke to, you know, the top table on the committee, and, you know, we did try and do it via social media.
Right.
We do have quite a large presence on there, and I, like Glenn said, I do spend quite a lot of time on there. Unique content, predominantly on YouTube as well, you know, and I'm trying to drive all the traffic to the YouTube channel,
Sure.
but also Facebook, Instagram initially. But there's also then, whenever you're dealing with an older group of guys, there's almost a fear of going onto platforms they're unsure of.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the likes of TikTok, we've recently went onto there as well. But it's hard to generate a buzz whenever you haven't actually walked the road yet.
Yeah.
So we try to be clever in our approach there, that if you look on our drums, we have taken all the regimental mottos of all the guards regiments across the British Army.
Right.
So we haven't went for the stereotypical battle honours or locations.
Uh-huh.
So if you look on the drums, it's got Nully Secundus for the Coldstream Guards, Queensabber Rabbit for the Irish Guards, you know, Ickding, all these other things. So I was able to do a whole social program from that. So we created loads of content in our first 8-9 months. Hopefully, as we now are in the year 2 and have hit the road, people have seen the social content. They're now starting to see us on the road, and anybody that is sitting on the fence,
Yeah.
you know, the door will be open on a Thursday night at 7:30 for them.
So Yusuf, obviously you're out on the road at the minute and stuff, and one of the things I wanted to ask you about as well was, given the kind of insular nature of the bond scene, you know, in terms of just how sometimes new bonds appear and can sometimes be viewed. What kind of response have you got from the wider kind of bond community in regards to that? Has it been accepting? Has there been any kind of, you know, who are these guys or whatever? Has there been any of that?
I think the band has been accepted. I think it's reached right out with, you know, the amount of views it's hitting on Facebook and YouTube and all the different videos right across all the media channels. No, it's been great, and as Mo said, we want to thank, you know, the Royal Orders as well. I think they've been great, and the amount of requests we've had for the band, you know, to be a part and, you know, be a part of their parades, and it's great to be so welcomed and to be asked. And
No, I get that. That's good. I mean, that's a great sign in terms of, obviously, and we'll get into some of the parade and aspect later on, because I think the first parade you did was Easter Monday there, wasn't it? That was the first time you
yeah, it wasn't day we hit the road in Enniskillen for the first time, so it was great to be a part of it. And I think with joining the band last year, it was the whole build up. That was it, what everybody was looking forward to, and yeah, no, it was a fantastic day, and the band sounded really well.
Cool. So were you aware of, like, in terms of whenever you formed up and as you started to make this journey forward, there's a lot of things around how groups come together. You'll have heard maybe more around the ideas of forming, storming, norming, all that kind of thing. You know, what was that like for you as a process, you know, in terms of this idea, getting formed up, having to kind of decide on your direction, trying to get people on board with all that, and to the point of maybe having to go through some growing pains to get to the side of where things actually start to gel together?
Um, we have to thank the chairman for that, you know, who has, you know, give us guidance, you know, and is very firm in his approach, you know. So although everybody's opinion is valid, as it should be,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's certainly not a dictatorship. You know, it's nice to have that firm hand and ultimately cast that deciding vote if needs be. The growing pains, once Marcus, the conductor, started putting out the tunes and the repertoire started to come together, the growing pains went more away from the music and into the fundraising and into the instruments. and everybody's then looking at their watches and the calendar as the time
Yeah.
ticked down to Easter Monday. And obviously there's a supply chain issue,
Mm-hmm.
and there's an awful lot of people watching bands on the street probably aren't aware of that.
Yeah.
That it's not just a simple case of going in and saying, "Can I have,
Yeah.
30 uniforms just off the shelf, please, all kitted out, ready to go."
Yeah.
It's that very much became main focus.
Right. So once the kind of direction musically of the band was settled, and people started to kind of get their head around, this is where we're going. This is the type of thing we're going for in terms of playing style, etc. It then shifted towards the practicalities, logistics, etc. in terms of what that looks like going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the musical style of the band is, it is, that traditional core of drums, melody band sound. Um, Flavour very much is a set list of traditional jigs, reels, traditional tunes, marches, and a few compositions that Marcus has arranged himself. And I'll praise Marcus here because actually his compositions, his arrangements are what is sounding best
Yeah.
currently on the road.
All right, so I'm going to spend a wee bit of time maybe delving more into the repertoire and all that in a wee second. But the other thing I think in terms of when you look at the idea of growing pains or other things, you've already mentioned this idea around funding, resources are a major issue for bands. How did you handle that? I know you've already kind of thanked a few people in regards to what they've done, but maybe it'd be great for us to hear from you about what actually was done. I'm not asking you going to like amounts and all that there, but how did you deal with the issue of funding and resources?
Well, last year the charity was cancer research. Correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn.
Yeah.
Yeah, cancer research. The charity this year was Autism NI. So any fundraising we do formally, it's very much split between band funds and our chosen charities. Autism NI collected a cheque for £1,000 just 2-3 weeks ago. That reminds me, I still need to do that for social media. Probably, you're talking well and upwards of £40,000 we've needed to get together
Right.
in the last 14, 15 months, which is no
amazing.
easy feat in 2024. The William King were very kind to us in procuring drums.
Okay.
We got our flutes through Miller Wicks, and obviously they were new. They've bedded in fantastically well. Great instrument. And other wheeling and dealing for, boots, belts, buckles, the accoutrements that go along with it, so a lot of that has fallen on the chairman.
Yeah.
But the committee have been on hand as well.
Right.
And whenever, that's like if a sponsored walk or, it's time to get, the begging bowl out.
Yeah, yeah.
And for a better turn of phrase, everybody's been on point. And there's been a few fundraising events in there as well. So
Sure.
it's went well. It's went well.
Any sacrifices that have had to be made in regards to that? Because I think when you mention a figure like, hey, 40,000 quid, just to kind of get to the point of being on the road. For some people, I think you could be going, I right, dead on. And with I suppose for me, one of the things that's really, I suppose, poignant for me, I suppose, at the minute is the lack of other funding sources that exist for marching bands outside of the Arts Council instrument grant, which is probably one of the few things that exist that bands can actually really go for. What kind of pressure does that place on members in terms of looking at here's a target we need to really get to, and going from we've got nothing to hey, we've now been able to do that?
Yeah, so it's really been a great commitment from the band, and it's suiting to everybody's needs. Sorting out plans for the guys and working with them. It's been a commitment of sacrifice of going to practice every week and building up. You don't get that overnight.
Yeah.
So it's bringing the guys all in together. A commitment of practice and a commitment of, I'll say, financial funding. There hasn't been, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no official funding has been given to the band. It has been the guys all coming together as one unit and coming out of our own pockets.
Yeah.
It really has been incredible from the band, and the commitment has been super. So it has.
I think but what are we talking about? In terms of membership wage, we're looking like 30, 40 people in the band, or what are you looking at?
Touching around about 30. I
Right.
think on a good day, if we manage to get everybody to the line by July, and obviously that's the aim.
Yeah.
That's the aim, 1st of July in East Belfast, 12th of July, Belfast County. We could top out at maybe 17, 18 flutes and 10, 11 drums,
So you're talking around that
plus drum
30,
majors,
30 mark,
around
whatever it is.
around a 30 mark.
That's a heck of a commitment per head when you think about it. I mean, it's just what about maybe 1,100 maybe pound a person? That's
They're
crazy.
each member, before we even had to consider fundraising, had to delve into their own pocket and obviously stump up a couple of £100. I
Right.
won't say the exact figure, but it was a good couple of £100.
Yeah.
As far as funding goes, we actually weren't eligible at all because we're so new for
Yeah,
Arts
so
Council,
you get
council funding.
contributions and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, in bank accounts,
Bank accounts, yeah.
that was an issue that the committee and the senior leadership team had to deal with.
Yeah.
Because nobody carries cash now. The days are gone and walking in, and flicking a pound on the table for dues. Not that would it be a pound anymore now.
Right.
You're having to roll out your notes if you've got them.
That's
So getting the bank account set up and
Yeah.
getting those online payments and stuff set up, so the way that modern banking goes, that was an issue for Sandy the treasurer.
Sure.
So that was very much a pinch point.
Well, I think it's really important that people read, because I know that I've mentioned around the fundraising side of things from bonds and previous episodes and stuff as well. But I think whenever you're starting off from absolutely nothing, the pressure that can put on a group of people to say, listen, there's no ifs, there's no buts about this here. We have to get this money. If this is a dream that we want to see come into reality, this has to be done.
It's where we actually put pressure on ourselves. So whenever we started with the social media campaign to build the buzz and build the story around the band, we would have probably would have fallen foul of many had we have turned up on Easter Monday in jeans, trainers, and the jacket. But we weren't far off that. The shirts came last minute. Still waiting on jackets yet again. Supply chain issue. No fault of the people we're working with. Um, but we did put that pressure on ourselves, which I actually think inspired us and spurred us on. The
Mhm.
fact that there was no alternative. There, not that Gareth, the chairman, would have allowed a plan B, but there was no plan B.
Yeah.
We've set this date. We've taken the booking with the apprentice boys. We have to have a smart uniform with the right instrumentation and the right bodies in those uniforms by Easter Monday.
Because that kind of pressure, though, can make or break an adventure. It could either have done what it seems to have done for you guys, which is bond you together all the more, or it could have just went, stuff this, we're away.
Absolutely, but I think that's where we're very lucky in our initial membership, where there is plenty of experience there. That there's older flute players in particular. I won't mention their names. They don't say much, but whenever they do speak, people listen. People really respect their views. And then there's guys like me would be a bit of a maverick. Let's go and do everything and do
Yeah.
it yesterday type thing. So it was very controlled. We do have a real good monthly meeting where the leadership team actually sit down and give us all the information we need, finances. We go through the minutes of the previous one. There's a really good agenda sit down, and that tees everybody in the band up. Everybody knows where to stand, get into 1 month and into the other. And yet again, we need to thank Marcus, Gareth, and Sandy for that.
Yeah, no, I think it really is one of those things that I just can't emphasize it enough in terms of what that means for bonds, in terms of the getting out, and even for bonds that are long established, when they move into the idea of, hey, we need to change our instruments, or we need to change our drums, or as most bonds do every 3 to 5 years, they're looking at a uniform change, they're looking at changing things up, and the pressure that puts on, and usually in most bonds, my experience has been, it's a small group of people that seems to bear the brunt of that.
Uh, That's just, I suppose I can touch on a personal story here. Whenever I went to the Coldstream Guards in 2016, they were in a bad state of repair and everything fell on me. And I think that's probably what sickened me with music,
Mm-hmm.
going into 2019, 2020 as I moved home. So coming into the Imperial Guards, it very much was a blank canvas where you're able to put the point of view across and go, look, it all can't fall on these three guys that sit in front of us
Yeah.
once a month. Everybody has to pull their weight, and there has to be something that you're comfortable pulling. That's not to say that everybody has to pull everything, But if you've got a young guy, we've got one of our drummers, Jack, who is interested in social media. He's on my social media team. So if I can't pick it up, it's a quick message to Jack. Jack, can you pick that up? And it goes out.
Yeah.
And it's finding the roles and responsibility, and it's laying it out like a project.
Yeah.
And with a band uniform, you hit the nail on the head there, Glenn. Every 3-5 years, wear and tear, bands are looking at uniform. And if you're looking at uniform for 2025, you need it to be
2 years ago.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. To ensure that
I
it's
did
there
it's
for
going
the
to be there
people.
for
Yeah.
you. Yeah. And so it definitely sounds like you've tried to foster a very collaborative environment then, where you're saying rules, but also the thing about rules is outlining the responsibility that comes with that. And I think that's something that whenever I was a young guy joining a band, I didn't really have that type of responsibility. It was the older members of the band who had that. And then as you started to get an idea of what that actually meant, you actually wanted to do something. You're like, well, listen, I could contribute something. So it sounds like you're trying to embed that in to the foundation of the band right before you've got anywhere. It's like going, everybody has a role to play, everybody has something to contribute. That's extremely important for us. So, is that a fair assumption that people have moved forward with that?
Yeah, so it's including the young people, as you said. Like Jack, and it's not just about it's everyone. It's it from the oldest to the youngest throughout the band. Everybody has came together and brought their point. There isn't a decision made in the band without it going to the whole band. It's not a one man band. It's not the three guys at the top table. It's everybody making a decision together. So the monthly meetings, as Mo said, is the key time to share that, and decisions are made and put to the band before we step foot out the door.
Cool. Let's move on and talk a wee bit more about that sort of repertoire and style of the band. I know you've already mentioned it's kind of classic core drums. For the uninitiated, Mo, what does that mean?
Do you want the whole history of
That's
Cora drums?
wonderful.
um, so traditional marches, something that we can take a lodge, an apprentice boys club, or a black preceptory on, and just have the guys behind us whistling. I suppose would be the best
Yeah.
the best way to do it. Something that you don't necessarily have to sing to, but something that's got a good strong melody line. Change the guard at Buckingham Palace for those that are unaware. Obviously, you've got a full symphonic wind band, but beside it you'll have a flute band or a pipe band.
Yeah.
The right man sitting here next to us if we want to talk pipes at any point in time. But it's making sure that there's a wee bit for everybody.
Okay.
You probably find yourself in your own band that there's those guys who are quite happy playing marches all day. There's those guys that love the band that they're in, but are quite content playing the sash on the Derry's walls all day as well. It's just finding that happy medium. The repertoire for year one is small because we just didn't have time, and it's sometimes just to play the simple things well. It's like paracetamol. Just keep taking it, and eventually it'll do you a turn.
Yeah. No, but I think that's part and parcel of what we were talking about earlier. When I think back of whenever I started, the repertoire that I had to learn as a 9, 10-year-old was ridiculously large. I mean, we're not talking, small amounts of tunes. We're talking ridiculous amounts of tunes. And I think that's an issue that we've even had, and they're even looking at, does that put people off whenever you come in and you see, hey, you know what, there's 80, 90 tunes on the book here. And you've got to get those all before you're out on the road, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there's another pressure as well that there's a camera on every pavement now.
Yeah,
That you can't really afford to run the risk of bedding people in the way you used to.
yeah,
And it's certainly my idea. Marcus and Colin, the band captain, is well on side as well, and we do keep it relatively small to enable those to come on
yeah.
and
But,
get
but
everybody out.
it's quantity and quality kind of thing as well, isn't it? It's like kind of going to be the more you have, the less likely you are to maintain the quality, especially at the start. As you progress, obviously you keep adding to stuff, and because you want naturally you'll want to progress and expand the repertoire. How do you get that? How you find and managing that now? Because obviously you've got a set amount of tunes right now. Is your conductor already thinking about where he's going next?
He is, and he's also being nudged by everybody who would collaborate with him about where the band wants to go musically. Um, we play some of Larry Johnson's pieces as well. Some fantastic piccolo parts
Fair
Laurie's
enough.
got for me. In fact, this is where I'll call Marcus, the conductor, out. He was originally meant to play piccolo,
Right, okay.
and he passed the buck essentially on to himself. No, but he, great guy, all over it. Fields of Ulster arrangements he's done, that would be our favourite piece to play on the road as well. Loads going on, nice drum score. He sat down with Sammy the lead tip, very much in a pipe band style of, drum sergeant, leading
Okay,
flute player and coming together. This is what I want, and come away with it like that. So it goes well. And as for the look of the band, this was my idea. There was many people said about, Glenn being dressed to the nines, but I wanted the band's drum major to look as if he was our band's drum major,
okay.
and not just as if, we've went for the most stylish or the fanciest uniform with the bear skin and everything like that. Make him look as if he is an Imperial Guardsman, pretty
Sure.
much.
Okay. So whenever you have got your repertoire and stuff, I'd say, for instance, your conductor was to put something in front of you, and you're like kind of going, that's not really in the style here. Do you think that the conductor is going to be like, all right, I'll take that on board, or are they going to go, how long?
It depends where that critique comes from.
Right.
Obviously you've got conductor, band captain, so Colin, the band captain, would have a large say. Again, that silent minority of older members, the back two rows of
Right,
flute
okay.
players, if it's something they strongly disagree with, obviously Marcus will take it away.
Sure.
But ultimately, he's a conductor, and if he thinks it's going to work, it works. There's some of his parts, or some of the arrangements I've spoken with him about and said, I don't think that suits, and he just lets me jazz it.
Okay.
So you'll hear some. I mean, I probably won't play the same thing twice on a lot of the pick parts, but it works.
Dead on. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about was, we'd mentioned earlier on with there being sort of a rich tradition of melody bands within sort of the Belfast area, and even in the wider Belfast area, there's quite a. What makes you start? What differentiates the Imperial Guards from what's already there?
It's as Mo said, it's the repertoire. With Marcus bringing in his unique pieces, it's going out there and showing the band community something different. So even me leading the band, I can hear the difference, and it's really enjoyable to walk to. So it's having something different about your style, your unique way of going about it.
Okay.
I think we're trying to put our own stamp on it. So we are.
Okay. So you mentioned difference there. What is the difference?
So running through the band, obviously Glenn's coming from a pipe band background, so although I wouldn't be keen on flourishing, Glenn flourishes as mace. He's a drum
Right,
maker.
okay.
Do
Right.
whatever he wants with it. If you go then through the drum corps, everybody who stick lifts always wants to aspire to be like the Royal Marines, but not everybody can be the Royal Marines. So Sammy has done things with his drum corps, and if you watch the way that they come up, come down, bring their sticks across, so he's done a unique style of stick lifting that the traditionalists out there will rip us because we're not stick lifting the way the Royal Marines,
Yeah.
but we're not trying to be the Royal Marines. Working then through the band, we've got Tucker on the bass drum, the legendary Tucker, number one bass drummer in the country. Not saying it because he's our bass drummer, but everywhere he's been, everybody's got this distinctive
Well,
swing.
sure, might get some stuff in the comments there that some people may
Bring it on.
put there. I think.
Bring it on. Bring it on. We'll happily set Tucker up against anybody. And then moving through the flutes, there's plenty of experience there. And yet again, Glenn's already covered around Marcus, some unique arrangements, and even the way that he's maybe rearranged the more traditional jigs, reels, and traditional pieces.
Yeah.
We've got a lot going on.
Okay, so you're trying to make sure that you stand out in some shape or form.
That would be musically, and then as far as visual goes, obviously I've already spoke on the stick lifting. That's where I then get to come to the fore. We were at the UID in Sandy Rose 50th anniversary,
Right.
and as opposed to the way a normal flute band would come in, set the music stands up, but I didn't want that. Let's march in, let's march out, let's give people something to look at as well as to listen to. And I don't know if this will go out or not before Oma's parade, but we've got something just a wee drill movement set to go into
Right,
Oma
okay.
at the
These
end
are
of the
gonna
month.
do some kind of what we talking? Or you're not giving it away?
No, I won't give it a no. Well, no, it'll just be basic drill with a few shapes in there as well. And ultimately, then the ambition would be to do that on the break on the 12th of July in Belfast as well.
Okay.
Depending, I believe number 6 is leading it this year anyway, so we'll be up the far end of the Lisburn Road anyway.
Yeah. I know. I thank God. Number 6 leading. That's another podcast on its own there, to be honest with you. So, and having had the guys from the county on, a couple of weeks back there, good to see that they've had a wee bit of sense there and having our district go out first for a change.
Just on that, Glenn, that was a fantastic episode. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and fair play to the guys in the county for putting their head above the parapet. It's not easy.
Yeah, I think they did. I mean, in terms of just one, in terms of the process that we went through in regards to trying to get something that was more aligned with where bonds are at and stuff, and fair play to them. I'll have to check in with them and see how the engagement events that went there over the two that they ran, just to kind of look at that. But I think it's, there's things like that that also impact on bond life as well. So you obviously talked a wee bit about what makes you unique. Any instances where it's been tough for you around the direction of the band in terms of where you've had to make some hard decisions about, hey, that's in, that's not in. No, this is definitely not something that we're looking at. Let's roll that back for something else.
The hardest decisions have been around where to parade.
Right, okay.
I think ties it in nicely with the name of the pod. Because you are new, everybody has, very kindly invited us down. But the one thing we set out at the start that we wouldn't be out every weekend, that is a huge commitment. And whenever you look at even the bigger Blood and Thunder bands or the more bigger melody bands, the Morns and the Ballinrans of the world, that is a huge cost as well, buses every weekend. And, if you think of that £40,000 plus outlay to then throw buses and everything else on top of that as well with a smaller band,
Yeah.
it just isn't feasible. So we're aiming for 2 a month.
Right, okay.
Now, if you then consider your 1st of July, your 12th of July, your Derry Day, and your last Saturday, there's 2 months worth of parades gone already. So, we can only apologise to the bands that, we're having to say no to, but we would rather go out with a strong band where possible and give people plenty of notice to make sure that because we need everybody on the road.
Yeah, and I get that's part and parcel of what all bands struggle with, is this idea of, do we have enough people to get out on the road? You've got the impact that, shift working has on people. It's not just standard 9 to 5 jobs that people work these days. And that has a massive impact on where you can say yes and no to as well. And I think even bands will find that, they'll say yes to a parade, and then when it gets close to that, you realize, hey, listen, shift patterns have changed here. There's been something else has come up. I'm not going to be able to make a parade that I've said that I was going to be to. And that can be really frustrating for some of the old school guys that are just used to being, hey, the band's out, I'm out, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, that's whenever we then lean on the elder guys, that silent minority again, that, we look to their guidance because they're the ones that are now with grandkids. They're the ones that might be coming up to retirement, so they're, even whenever they're so busy, you can imagine the guys in their 20s and 30s trying to juggle a 40-hour week then on top of
It's
that.
hard, it's just hard.
And this would be a good time for Glenn to pitch the need for a drum major.
Another one?
Yeah, so it's just with my commitment with pipe bands, flute bands, I'm torn between the two. So we are needing a drum major to cover myself for a couple of parades throughout the summer. Myself heading away to the Scottish Championships and the World Championships with pipe bands. I would encourage, if there is any drum major out there.
So let's go on to the wide angle here, and then talk to the camera there and put a play out.
Play for the band is if anybody would be free for the 27th of July, and would like to accompany the Imperial Guards on the Dunloy parade. That's the first parade, and then on to Derry Day on the 10th of August. If anybody is willing to step in my place, be greatly appreciated by the band, and I'd say it is an honour to walk in front of the Imperial Guards Flute Band.
Right, so just to be clear, we're looking for a proper style drum major here. We're not looking for someone with 2 tennis balls and
no, we're not.
Thing, whatever here, and giving it loads, are we? No,
we're looking for a melody drum major.
All right, so folks, there you go. If that's your kind of bag, then, and you have the potential of helping the guys out, why don't you get in touch with them? I'm sure we'll put their socials and contact stuff on the this description for the video, and you can get in touch with them, or even just go on to Facebook, look up the band, and get in touch with them and let them know that you're interested. There's bound to be people out there who will fit the bill and may actually be free to do that. So that would be great. It'd be great if we could play a part and help you get a hand on that there. So in terms of, we've already mentioned a wee bit about you doing Easter Monday being a first parade. So I know for me, first parades are always a massive deal. Talk us through the experience of lead up, say, a week leading up to the event of knowing, hey, we're going to be out. Talk me through what that's like.
Yeah, so it really took up the whole build up. So from drill practices to the real musical practices, in the band hall, it all had to happen. It just happened. It really came up so quickly. So, it's just putting everything all in place, ready for that day. But I think it was the right thing to do was to walk from the band hall that morning. So it wasn't a case of going straight down to Skillen and starting our first steps there. It was walking on homeland in East Belfast. So it was great just to leave that hall on that first set of rolls with the band, and it was a great feeling.
Right. So that wee short parade that you did from the hall round, you done a wee lap of some of the area of around East Belfast. That's the first time your feet hit the street.
Yeah, that was the first time on the road. We have had drill practices outdoors, on 4G football pitches, but that's the first time hitting the road as a flute band with the first set of rolls. Yeah, so I think it was a nerve-wracking thing, but it was an excitement, and
Yeah.
I let most hook musically.
What was that like for you, given that initial call out? Here we go, we're ready to. You're just about to open your mouth for the first time and take that left foot going forward and going. What's going through your mind?
Yeah, so calling the band the attention, it was in my head going, this is the first time. This could be a thing for years to come. To be the drum major, to call that command, to get the band in order, ready to march on the road. It was a great feeling.
Yeah.
It's topped up there with the best moments. Yeah.
Did your shoulders go back a wee bit further or anything like that there? Yeah.
Well, the guy said it did straight up a bit, and I did pick it up a wee bit. It's been different. I dropped out from drum major from. I was a drum major from I was 7 till I was 14, with pipe bands. Had that gap until now, so I'm a gap of 10 years.
Right. Okay.
Still kept my hand at it because I'm still been a part of pipe bands since a very young age. But it was great just to pick up the mace again, and it took a bit of persuasion, but they got there in the end. Just with knowing the guys in the band and being associated through loyal orders, they were at me, and eventually gave in.
Right. Okay.
But on that day, it was worth it. So it was.
Right. So you being hounded then, were you?
I was, but it didn't take too much in the end.
What was there? Cash incentive? No.
No, there was no brown envelopes.
What is that like from a playing member's point of view in terms of the first walk off?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. With my own experience, I wasn't overly nervous, but I could feel the tension coming from everybody else, particularly, that founding group of guys who were, palpable excitement. The only thing I would say is that Gareth, the chairman, put in the wrong route selection.
Right, okay.
And to take your first steps up Milady's Road.
Yeah.
It
went the other way.
It went the other way. Yeah. Certainly. And obviously that's up for discussion how we want to go into the Avenue the 1st of July night.
Yeah.
There's some people want to go from Milady's Inn, whereas the rest of us would rather go from the King Richard and just
walk straight
just
down.
100 yards. 100 yards
in. There. No, that's even on the 1st of July, that and Bloomfield are two. They're not nice for anybody to be walking, especially blowing an instrument. And
stuff,
and
particularly with it being first steps and people unaccustomed to it as well. But that was key for us.
Yeah.
Fantastic decision that was made by the band. The easy thing would be just try and get down to Enniskillen and wing it from there.
Yeah, but I think what you've done there is you break the back of it straight away. Any nerves and stuff there, that's the place to do it, because maybe not too many people knocking about on the street or anything like that there. You know, it's a good time to go, hey, let's just let it go. Let's go for it, because, you know, there's no taking it back once we get down to the Enniskillen and get
Yeah,
in front
yeah,
of people.
absolutely. And we did train well beforehand, you know. Ian at Nettlefield Primary, big shout out to
Yeah.
him. You know, he does some fantastic work, not just with us, you know, but there's other bands I know certainly go in there. Absolute godsend. So Ian, thank you very much. You know, really appreciate it. So I knew, as the guy taking the drill, that we were well prepped. You know, we've got the right man and the right man in front of us. You know, the right experience through, and I call it the spine of the band.
Mhm.
You know, that drum major, lead tip, the two guys in the front and centre, the drivers that keep him right.
Yeah.
You know, then bass drum. Cymbals is actually key whenever, you know, the drum major's maybe giving a signal,
Yeah.
and, you know, the bass drum's up high, bass drummer can't see. Then through myself, piccolo, conductor, and band captain at the other side. You know, so we've got a good solid spine, and very much I would explain that like a football team. If you've got that hardcore spine, you know, the guys on the wings and
Yeah.
the guys in the full back positions can do a lot of damage going forward, and that's the way that, you know, we are trying to think.
Sure. How do you think you were received then? Not and whenever you got to the actual parade itself, then, you know, how do you think you were received by the crowd? Was there even anybody from Bonds that come up to you whenever you, as part of the breaks in the parade, to talk to you about how you were, what they'd sing?
Yeah, no, everything's been positive, but, you know, we need to caveat that with, you know, what people say to your face isn't necessarily what they're typing online, and I don't mean that to be rude or disrespectful in any shape or form, but we know what happens, and it's something that, you know, we should challenge.
Yeah.
You know, and but the feedback on the first day was really positive. Um, it went well. You know, we had a few uniform malfunctions. You know, but as you would
Yeah, you'd expect.
as you would expect. But we were also then very well looked after by the Dundonald Browning Club. You know,
Good club, yeah.
yeah, no, they looked after us really well. Maybe a wee bit chilly for shirt sleeve order. However, you know, the fact that we got
Yeah.
down there in shirts.
But about if that's all you have, I mean, that's the what are you gonna do?
Absolutely. But yeah, no, it went well. Bit of a long blow, just over 3 mile. I think we clocked it at, and again with a small repertoire, there was a few things had to be repeated. But say la vie, you know,
It's
we'll
fun
take it.
practice as well. Do you know what I mean? It's,
Every foot is a practice,
yeah.
you know, and you just need to be aware of, you know, where all the media teams are. And there's some fantastic media getting produced out
Yeah.
there by the local bands. And if you know where they are, and we can tee him up, then he knows where they are. Then
Yeah.
we can feed that down through the band to make sure that we're either not coming past on the top
Yeah.
or playing something that we might
We're
be
not
rehearsed on
100%
the road.
sure of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no. So I know that what I want to do is I want to push you a wee bit on that, the both of us. In terms of, while it's a great experience, what did you learn from it in regards to that you were going to use going forward? Because I think that that's also important that bonds also take on board this. And it's great, as you say, to get the initial positive feedback, but in your own minds, there's bound to be things out there you're going, we need to brush up here. There needs to be a wee bit something else on here. What did you learn?
Oh, there was an awful lot of brushing up points, and you know, and obviously we had a long journey back from Enniskillen to, you know, to hot debrief them, you know,
Uh-huh.
and everybody knew exactly where they stood because musically it wasn't great. It was tough. It was tough. You know, you don't just go from walking in circles in Nettlefield Primary School to, you know, going at pace with no breaks round Enniskillen. You know, so musically, an awful lot to learn. Drill, an awful lot to learn. You know, despite doing all the practice, you know,
Yeah.
the nerves kick in, and despite trying to be two paces front and rear, all of a sudden the guy who should be, you know, that way, he's in that
Yeah.
rank and stuff. But, you know, Glenn's scripted well. You know, to bring a guy in from a pipe band background and put him in front to lead our band, you know, and the thing that has always frustrated me watching drum majors is that if you go to a band contest, very rarely you'll see judges, marshals, etc., go to the drum major. They'll go and looking for the band captain or the conductor or the secretary or the chairman. But we see it, that's his job. Once he comes to attention, he's in charge.
One of the things that it's great to hear about there is this idea of trying to adopt that military style. And I think that most people don't realize that there's actually a bit of a science almost behind this, rather than this is just somebody getting out in front of a band, calling out a few commands, and away we go. There's a lot more to this than meets the eye. Mo, that's probably your background in regards to that, because you already mentioned things about two paces and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of people don't think about that whenever a band's actually forming up. As I know that our drum major will do that, where he'll walk the two paces between each of the ranks, making sure this is where you should be standing. And then he'll check that whenever we come to a halt to see who's moved forward or whatever else. But even the taking of corners and all that kind of stuff, where you need to, who needs to stand still and all that kind of, there is a real sense to this, even in terms of counting things out in your head and all this kind of stuff. Mo, you can talk to that a bit more as well.
Well, it should fall on Glenn,
Yeah,
but you know,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, I'll take it for now. You know, and I'll give you a perfect example. If you can count to four and put one foot in front of the other, and you can essentially be a drum major once you start to learn the music. So if you take a counter march, and for those unaware of what a counter march is, band goes forward, it literally turns on 180 degrees, goes back the way it came. So there's very simple science behind that. If you are 10 ranks deep and two paces per rank, that's 20 paces. In theory, your drum major should be no more than 6 paces between front rank of side drummers and the drum major. So that's 26. So whenever he gives the command to counter march, if he steps short for 26 paces, that will almost guarantee him that the back of the band has turned and completed the counter march, and then he can resume taking a normal pace. If he doesn't and he goes, he's got no idea what's happening behind him. The bass drum might be struggling to get round. Somebody might have missed a turn, might have missed a mark, and what you then end up is with the accordion effect
yeah,
the wrong way. Whereas what you want is to be nice and tight, come in, step short, take your 26 paces, and then he can regain that. And then thinking a wee bit further ahead musically, your normal musical phrase would have 32 paces in that phrase. So if he counter marches at the end of a phrase, just step short for the full next phrase, and then you then get that sweeping movement as you then go into the next phrase. You know, so it is scientific, it is mathematical, and the other real. If you don't hear me playing a piccolo, you'll hear me shouting at him or shouting at the guys in the wheels, because all bands do it. It's not just unique to Northern Ireland, it's global. All bands do it. And whenever they go in to turn that corner or wheel, they crab.
yeah,
Whereas if you just stay in that, the inside guy, those making a turn, stay in a straight line and don't move, it brings everybody around that much easier. But you know, you need to then find time to get people down to practice, you know, because it's not just one way, you know, you're turning one way and all that, you know, and it's finding that space. And again, we've been very lucky to have committed guys and the space that we've been able to rehearse in.
That's the stuff that again, I think that people don't see that, you know, for the bands that take that kind of seriously, they're out there doing the marching practice, they're out there, they're running the drill, they're, you know, what's it like if we're turning left, if we're turning right, or if we counter march here, what does that look like? Where's the best time for us to call that in terms of a tune, you know? And sometimes some bands use a double bass drum beat whenever they're looking for a turn or whatever else they got. They're just giving some kind of indication as that this is what we need to do.
Oh, absolutely. And there's no right way or wrong way. You know, I'm just very fortunate that I was instructed one way that, you know, had 300 years of history behind it.
Yeah,
And I've been able to then come in and sit Glenn down and goes, look, this is the way these guys do it. Do you want to do this?
sure.
You know, whereas like Glenn's already mentioned, had he wanted to come in and give signals the way they do in pipe bands, we would have worked with that, because it was the blank canvas. It
Yeah.
was, you know, let's do it our way. But
Sure.
Glenn said he wanted to do it, you know, essentially the British Army regimental way, which
You're going happy days.
absolutely, because then that made it very easy then for me to teach everybody else that I didn't have to learn anything new.
Sure.
You know, so yeah, there is a science behind it, but again, you need that committed guys, you need the space to do it. We can talk about it, we can put PowerPoints up, we can do diagrams, we can do all these other things, but ultimately practice makes perfect.
So one of the things that I'd like to kind of talk to you about as well is the idea of the role of the band within the community. And I suppose, what do you see the band's role within the idea of community? And I suppose the other thing I'm looking at is, how do you walk the fine line between cultural expression and political identity?
Yeah, so I think throughout the last year, there's been leaflets, there's been social media aspect, it's been reaching out to our local community. I think with the fundraising as well, is reaching out to your family and friends and, spreading the word. That's basically how it has evolved, to getting to the stage that we're at. So it's doing stuff for charity and raising them funds and, getting it out there so that everybody's working out of it, not just the band. It's reaching out to the cancer research or autism NI, and helping them as well. It's not just about the band, but it's bringing everybody together within the band.
Yeah, so there's that idea of trying to connect with the wider sense of community. And I mean, for me, sometimes I lost balance. What's the motivation behind the charitable aspect of what you do? Where does that actually come from?
Yeah, so it's really hitting guys in the band. When it hit the autism NI, it's families within the band that are
Right.
impacted by this. So we sat down and we said, look, what charity are we going to go for? We listed a couple of charities, and then it was put to the committee and the band. We want to do this because it is close to some guys' hearts within the band.
Yeah.
So,
So that personal connection is important for that there, because it's hard to get people behind something that you don't really believe in, or you don't have that sense of, hey, well, this hasn't really impacted me, so I'll not put anything into it. Whereas the camaraderie aspect is, well, hey, we want to show that we're really supportive behind us. So as a result of that, we'll get behind that. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it's more and more every day. Autism is out there, and it's making people aware of that, and with the needs that and the requirements and the funding that is needed to support that.
Yeah.
It's good for the band to be putting that out there and helping local families.
Yeah. So again, the second part of the questionnaire was around the idea of that fine line between cultural expression and political sensitivity, which is, again, I think something is a fine line that bonds encounter day in, day out in regards to how they're viewed, etc. Well, how do you balance that out?
Just before I come on to that point, Glenn, as far as the charity work goes, it's not a new idea, but it's something that everybody should look up to what your own band does charity wise in the local community. I mean, I can't remember the figure. I think it was announced last year. But whatever you have raised over the years, so it's not just unique to us. And obviously, as far as charity work goes, Pride of the Raven are very much at the forefront of that in East Belfast.
Well, we've done our bit over the years. I mean, it's one of those things, that right from the very offset of the band having a competition in the early '80s, it was always about charity. So it's something that's been through the apps, it's the fabric of the bond every year. It's one of the key decisions that's made at every AGM is who the charity is going to be for the year ahead. And and it's not something you do something to shout about, because at the end of the day, as our like our secretary would say, the charity thing is a mood changer. It's a game changer for the motivation behind what we're doing. And I think that maybe plays into the part of that question is that it's one of those ways that we address the fine line between cultural expression and political sensitivity.
Well, as far as the political sensitivity comes, it has to then come down to the individual within the band. Not everybody is comfortable putting their head above the parapet.
Hmm.
For whatever reason, it might be immediate family, it might be employment, might be a recording service or the police or whatever the reason is. And it's finding that line of where the majority of the band feel comfortable and where we take it. And a lot of that then comes down now with social media.
Mm.
We take a picture. You do have to ask everybody, are they comfortable?
Yeah,
Because we know that there's enemies of what we do out looking any excuse to target anybody.
yeah,
And ultimately, everybody's got a political view, everybody's got a political agenda. But you know what we are? We're just a group of guys that wants to be a good flute band.
sure.
And there's so many people that don't see that.
Yeah,
Just because we play the sash doesn't make you one thing or the other. It's
yeah,
just a piece of music. And I know I covered on a previous pod with yourselves. I had an English regiment, the Coldstream Guards, playing the Foggy Dew. And for those that don't know about the Foggy Dew, it's about Irish Republicans killing British soldiers.
uh-huh.
And here we were 100 years later, the very British soldiers, Irish Republicans, were trying to kill, are playing their music.
Yeah,
And music's
music. Yeah,
music's music. And we do come from communities that do have the loyal orders embedded in them,
yeah,
and they deserve our musical support. And so if Craigie Defenders have engaged us for July, obviously Easter we had the Dundonald Browning Club. You know, we're already engaged for last Saturday as well. Excuse my ignorance, I can't remember the preceptory. You know, but we just want to do the right thing
Yeah.
for us. It shouldn't be offensive. What we do isn't offensive. And genuinely, if you're finding offence in what we do, then you're the person with the problem.
And I think there's an element of that, as you know, in terms of that, you know, but I think also that bonds do have a responsibility to be aware of sometimes how behavior can come across.
Absolutely, and it's something that is very well embedded in our constitution. Obviously, you know, we like a beer, but certainly it is zero tolerance to drugs. Now, that's not to say that there be people in the band do things behind closed doors that nobody else is aware about.
Sure.
You know, we're not stupid. We understand that this is modern society.
Yeah.
This is, you know, an East Belfast, Greater Belfast band. You know, and that poison is out there. You know, we like a beer after we done the Protestant Boys contest. You know, there was a good crowd of us stood in Newton Ards Road and had a few beers and watched the rest of the parade. You know, but that's very much our stance. You know,
Yeah.
if we do things right, we do things well, we do things professionally, then nobody should be offended about what we do,
Yeah.
and we promote ourselves in the best possible
And I
way.
think that it's important that bonds have those conversations though about, you know, listen, folks, there's cameras everywhere. We need to be mindful that, you know, what might be caught on camera because you just don't know. You may go think something you're doing is not being caught by someone, and then all of a sudden it appears on a social media stream somewhere, and you're like kind of going, flip me. We could have done without that, you know. So I think it's great that bonds are starting to have these conversations amongst their members to say, listen, we need to be very careful about some of the stuff that we're doing.
The way that I would explain it, and obviously doing child protection for the band as well, would you be comfortable putting your own children into these environments that maybe isn't
Yeah.
appropriate? And if I feel comfortable enough bringing my own children on the band bus, then I think, from my own point of view, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. No, and I think it's definitely one of those things. It's a good barometer to have in terms of if I was putting someone else in this position, how would we be feeling about that?
And certainly, you know, with the under 18s in the band, you know, their parents trust us
Yeah, yeah,
and empower us, you know, and it might be the guy's first parade.
yeah,
You know, he's maybe 12, 13, 14 years of age, and he's going on a bus with a whole load of men,
yeah, yeah.
you know, growing men, you know, and there's industrial language use. Of course there is. You know, it's, you know, we're a working class
Yeah,
group of guys, you know, but those parents have trusted
yeah,
us with their greatest asset. You know, so if we do things right, we do things professional,
yeah.
then we'll
So I take it that the parents and stuff are then you'll have your form, if they're consulted and all that
absolutely,
whatever
absolutely.
sorted
That
out.
all came out in one of our first social campaigns
Right.
whenever we done a Meet the Band series. And obviously the questions were vetted by the parents, and we give them a preview of it. But if they weren't content with it, we just didn't.
Sure.
We didn't post it.
And that adds to that element of the trust thing, because that's not just a given. We can't just assume that it's there. We have to do things that they earn that trust from parents, especially if they're you know their child's going to be spending a heck of a lot of time as part of a bond and a way, you know.
Yes, yes. You know, we're not just taking the physical aspect. You know, they're paying their money into it as well.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so
That's it.
they're investing emotionally and financially in what we're trying to do, and the least we can do is look after their child to the best of our ability.
So thinking on about the idea of future of the bond, because I think obviously you know you're in the germination stages really. You know you are just you know at infancy in terms of an actual unit. Where do you see the next 5 years for the bond? And I suppose ultimately, what kind of legacy do you want Imperial Guards to leave?
Where I see the band, certainly, obviously, there is a short, medium, and long term plan. Year one was very much the short aspect of it. Get to the road by whatever means necessary. Let's get a uniform. Let's get instruments. Let's get a repertoire. Let's get guys in and get there. Year two will be furthering that repertoire and more of, and I'll make the play here, more of Marcus's original arrangements,
Right.
because that will be the unique selling point for the band, playing our own stuff, you know. And I mentioned Larry Johnson earlier. His stuff is amazing,
Yeah,
but there's so many bands already playing
playing some of that. Yeah,
playing some of that, you know. And unless you've got a keen ear, which obviously a lot of people do, but so many people don't. It's hard to determine what band's what. So we want everything to be unique to ourselves, and that's going to fall on Marcus and Colin over the next year. So long term, personally, I know we've covered it in the previous pod. I'd love to take the guys away somewhere unique.
Yeah.
And, you know, a tattoo in a foreign country. You know, the pipe bands do it.
Yeah.
Why aren't the flute bands? I don't know. We've covered that previously.
Yeah, no,
You know,
that's,
challenge that.
I think it's definitely one of those things. I think there's plenty of spaces and places in the world where the music would be appreciated and accepted in some shape or form.
Certainly, you're talking East Coast of America, right
Oh,
the way
yeah.
right the way into the Rocky Mountains. You know, they've got a Scots Irish festival out there every early September.
Yeah.
It would be a fantastic opportunity, but with that, you know, it has to be long term planning.
Yeah.
You know, because time off work, the money,
Travel,
the travel,
expenses,
you know. So even if it's a 5-day trip, you're talking you're asking guys to take a full week off work.
exactly. Yeah,
You know,
right.
to get the
Yeah.
day on either side.
Well, keep keep in contact with us, because I do have a couple of American Faith and Drum Corps actually coming here next year. They're looking to do a number of events and looking to organize some joint ventures kind of thing. Because I know for me, in the back of my head, I always have this idea of actually putting on like a Belfast muster and having a few of the bands from here and a few of the Faith and Drum Corps from the state actually doing a
Are
wee.
you reading my script?
Oh no, I was going to go and I get this down on the copyright. What's the date? But yeah, no, the idea of having that kind of approach, even in the likes of, sort of like the Ormeau Park direction and stuff, having something like that. But I know the first time I mentioned this was about trying to do something with at the Boyne Heritage Centre. Was it'll be a cracking place to have, some kind of display of American Faith and Drum and the Northern Ireland bands coming together and doing something along those lines. I think it'd be fantastic to have there. So in terms of maybe trying to close this out, in terms of personal reflections and the journey that you have come from, has there ever been a time whenever during the year up until he's got into the band where you're like kind of going, this is just a wee bit too much? Did you ever come to a place of doubt? What have we done? And how did you handle that?
I don't think it's been a doubt. You know,
But there's
a
bound to be
lot.
times where you have gone, like, seriously, folks.
It's been a lot, so it has, and a lot of it has fell on the chairman. You know, he's been tremendous throughout, and the amount of work that he's put in, that Mo's put in. You know, Sandy a treasurer, and Marcus as a conductor. It's been it's been a journey, you know, for them guys, and as Mo said, for them to step out in the road for that first time, you know, it's been tough for them, and I think as Gareth says, the chairman, many sleepless nights, you know, and getting the uniforms at that late stage, the week before, guys showing up on a Sunday to collect hats, you know, for the Monday. That's what it came down to, and I think it was a bit of fear with him, but
Yeah.
it's not been, it's been enjoyable, and I think the guy just looking forward to that first parade, and now to build on that is the journey ahead to look forward to.
So what you're saying is the sacrifice been worth it?
It has indeed.
Yeah. So just in closing off then, obviously every band, I know you just put a play out for a drum major and stuff, but every band's always on the outlook for new members on a constant basis. You have a platform here to put that out there, and so shameless plug time, folks.
Yeah.
Put it out there. And why should people join your band?
The plea for a drum major, just to confirm that, is for just 2 parades. I am staying. It isn't.
If they get a better one, they'll replace them.
But as we've said, you know, it is really for flute players, you know, to come in to the band and to build on what we've got. You know, hopefully looking to the 1st and the 12th this year, we're looking to be having 18 on the road. So it's really to build on that and bring the younger ones in, and the tuition is there throughout the week. So
yeah, brilliant, great.
This ties in, Glenn, with my legacy. Ultimately, where I see the band in 5 years, having a nucleus of decision makers under the age of 25. That would be my own personal ambition. So my personal plea is, if you are under the age of 25, you know, please consider us as, you know, a musical journey. We're trying to do things professionally. And if you are a gatekeeper, if you do have a young person, as a parent, carer, or, you know, teacher, even, you know, anybody that you're coming into contact with, under the age of 18 where you think they could do with a wee bit of music, a wee bit of discipline, a wee bit of structure in their lives, drop us a line. For me, the future is key. Primarily flutes at this moment in time, but that's not to say that, you know, I don't want to say the drummers are going to die off soon, but you know, as they get up in years a wee bit more, there'll be certainly room in the drum corps then. But yeah, no, certainly check us out, and if you're interested, drop us a message.
Brilliant. Folks, just want to say thanks very much for coming in and being part of this new set of podcasts. It's great to be back with the pod, back and connecting with bands again, and kind of I'm giving a platform to a brand new band as well. In terms of just giving a wee bit of an insight as to where you've come from and where you are going and what the future looks like. And I suppose to give people that other insight into what is it like to actually get a band up and running from scratch. I think that's really, really important because you know, a lot of bonds have been in existence for quite some time, but this idea of just what it takes to start from, let's walk into your room, let's decide what we're going to be called. I didn't think even asked you where the name it come from. I'm suspecting that there's a connection with the guards thing. I went, no, okay, dead on. There you go. There's me and my assumptions. Let's leave that. Uh, but even along, how do we get the name? How do we decide on a style? How do we decide on all these kind of things? Whereas if you join another band, all that stuff's already done. You know, you're walking in the years and years and years of tradition, and it's already you've just got to align yourself with it. But you guys have had the idea of actually being able to form that for yourselves and do something new for yourselves as well, and bring another fresh take on a band to the scene here. So well done in terms of the journey that you have been on. Haven't seen you live on the road because I actually didn't walk Easter Monday, and I think you were away on the Pro Boys parade long before we got off, so I don't think I actually seen you.
It's another ambition of the band to start first and finish early. Everywhere we go, you know, the end of the parade slots for the bigger bands and the smoke grenades and, you know, and everything else that goes along with that as it's evolved.
Yes, so the smoke grenades, the better, to be honest with you. So it's, but folks, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time out to come down and join us. Wish you all the very best for the future. Alrighty, folks. So that's the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Again, thanks to the Morris and Glenn for coming in and sharing that story with us. I think it's really important for us to highlight, you know, what it actually takes to form a band from scratch, and also some of the decisions that need to be made there, and all of the elements that come into that in terms of fundraising, uniforms, parades, and getting things up and running, and making sure that everybody pulls their weight. Make sure you join us next week for another episode. So until then, look after yourselves and take it easy.